From the terrific terror of the Teletubbies
to the tantalizing tongue twister, Moses supposes his poses are roses.
This week we're discussing 28 Years Later and Singin' in the Rain.
This is the Film Angle. Welcome to The Film Angle, a podcast where we dive deep into the latest releases and unearth the classics to better our cinephilic curiosity. I'm Kris.
And I'm Alex.
Let's get into it.
Hello, Kris. How you doing?
Hi, Alex. Back again.
Back again. Technically, this is our second ever video podcast, right?
Yeah, it feels like we've done it a couple of times now. Like, I know that's technically what couple means is two.
Well, yes.
It feels like we've done it more than that. It feels like we've done it several times, and I'm like, I don't feel as alien to this as I thought I was going to, because we've been doing the audio thing only for so long. I was expected to feel a bit more weirded out by it, but I'm fine. I'm fine seeing myself.
And what did you think of the home show? Did you watch it back?
Of course I watched it back, and absolutely no, I did not analyze myself every single second of that video. Yeah, I mean, that's a gnarly experience, but I thought that went really well, and I really love just being in person with you and actually just chatting about it there. And you know, it's just something about like body language, doing it the real old school way is the way to do it, I think.
Absolutely.
And not to devalue what we're doing here.
Oh no, of course. You know, the internet connection is pretty good. Hopefully, there's not too much of a delay there, and we're bouncing off of each other. But yeah, no, I really enjoyed it, and hopefully there'll be more home shows to come. Obviously, for anybody who doesn't know, I think we said it on the home show, but you know, we don't live that close to each other as of this moment, so you know, they're going to be few and far between to begin with, but we have some times planned in the future where you'll be up in Bristol, Kris, and if you're here for the weekend, then why don't we just record a podcast and do something? So
we'll definitely squeeze it in if we can.
The green screen is still at mine. Is it still
up? Is it just like half your room is your living room is green screen?
No, I need as much airflow at the moment with how hot it is. We're recording this right now on what was, I think, 32 degrees not too long ago. So I've just had to shut the window in my little recording room here, and I can feel the sweat already on my body. Hopefully, it doesn't come across too badly in the video recording. We picked the right time to start the video podcast when I'm at my sweatiest.
Nice.
So it's a nice visual for our audio listeners. There, you can only guess what I look like.
You look good. You don't look sweaty. You know,
do you know what I'm saying? Yeah,
I've been in your house though. Whenever it is that temperature, and it is hot in there.
It is hot. We are trying to learn how to cool the place down for our dog, and I think we're doing a pretty good job. But right now, obviously, I need the soundproofing, so here we are. But it has been a couple of weeks since our home show. I hope you guys don't mind that we're a little bit delayed on the 28 years later review, but you did get some interviews in the meantime, so I hope you guys listen to them, because I had a lot of fun conducting those interviews. So hopefully you don't mind, but it's given us a bit of time to stew over 28 years later, and one of your favorite films of all time, Kris, right?
28 years later?
Oh no, Singin' in the Rain.
I cut you off too early. I don't think that's over exaggeration at all. I absolutely love this movie. We've talked about it a few years ago before we even did the podcast, because you'd seen it back in 2018, I believe. For the first time.
He's keeping tabs.
Oh, 100%. I got to keep track of these things and Alex's progression in the musical theater world. So yeah, I'm really excited more, first and foremost, just to catch up with you and see where you land on it 7 years later on. So can't wait.
Yeah, absolutely. There has been a couple of big film news things that happened within the 2 weeks that we've been apart, Kris. So I wondered if you wanted to chat a little bit about that, because people are chatting about that. Does that
Yeah,
make sense?
that's spitball a bit. Yeah.
All right. The new Bond film has a director, Denis Villeneuve. Do you have thoughts on this?
Denis Villeneuve. No,
Oh, sorry, did I pronounce it wrong?
no, Denis Villeneuve. Yeah, like that seems like that's funny how that wasn't like was that on anybody's radar to begin with? That like that was a possible outcome. I just didn't think that he'd be a
Well,
guy he'd be preoccupied with the whole Dune universe. That I thought that maybe this wasn't even another franchise, just wasn't in his wheelhouse right now.
it yeah, he has been picking up franchises as of late,
Mm.
hasn't he? There was a short list of directors not long before they announced it, and his name was on there. So, I guess for maybe a few days it was a possibility. I can't remember who else's name was on there, but yeah, I just remember his name being on there. I thought as well. I was like, I'm not sure if they're going to do it, but I guess if Nolan has toyed with the idea of doing a Bond film for a while
Well, he kind of made his Bond movie, didn't he?
with Tenet. I think, they probably went out to him maybe, but he's very strict with, how he wants his films. So he would probably always be a difficult sell for a company that wants a specific vision. That being said, Denis Villeneuve is probably just as good as Nolan in my eyes. And his kind of filmmaking style is not too dissimilar from Nolan. So you're going to get like a really well done, probably a lot of practical stuff,
Sure.
and a big action blockbuster. Do I want to see Denis Villeneuve kind of go on to other things other than franchise stuff? Maybe after he's finished Doom Messiah, because I really want to see kind of the conclusion to his trilogy there. Of course I do. But I'm excited to see what he does with Bond. It puts a bit of interest in it after obviously being bought out by Amazon.
Sure. Yeah.
There was a little bit of distaste, I guess, for how they might handle Bond, and obviously, I guess this gives them a little bit of credibility again that they've gone out to a big director like Villeneuve. So, yeah, there you go.
I think this is going to be the real I think Denis Villeneuve has definitely obviously already proved himself like several movies ago that he is somebody who is worthy of the worship that he gets from film sci-fi fans, etc. But I think this is going to be the first real test for him in terms of yes, he's no stranger to existing IP or franchises, but Dune and Blade Runner are both kind of franchises that were sort of always on the kind of cult fringe, and we're kind of always waiting for somebody to pick up and do whatever they wanted with it. And now you're working with Bond, where it's like, well, half the world has a say on what Bond is and what it means to them. Deep cinephile fans and people just like your mom and dad or your brother and sister, kind of everybody knows about Bond. So it'll be really interesting to see if he still can have his own stamp and he can really alter this thing.
There's a lot of rules, isn't there? There's a lot of rules on Bond.
I think people just have a real inner idea of who Bond should be to them, and it's kind of always a big swing whenever they try to do something different with it. I mean, Casino Royale was a really big swing compared to where we were before with Pierce Brosnan. And obviously that worked out really well. So there's a lot of pressure on him.
Yeah, definitely. There is a wish list of actors now. I don't know if you know this. They want a young Bond, apparently. And the 3 actors they have on their wish list is Jacob Elordi, Tom Holland, and Harris Dickinson. So one of those 3 could potentially be the next Bond.
Yeah, they said has to be under 30, right?
Yeah.
It's hard. It depends on what direction they want to take the character. If they want to do a pre-existing formula, that kind of like a template Bond that we've seen before, or if they're just going to do a different kind of Bond, because cause it's either dancing between suave and stoic, and where Daniel Craig was probably more in it was sort of a mix of the two, but probably more in the serious action hero sort of role.
I think they wanted to go down the darker demon route with him, but they didn't still didn't fully commit to that. He's still not the chain smoking alcoholic from the books, but he has some demons. Whereas I guess they want to do a young James Bond, almost probably like an origin, maybe, of as long as they aren't too cheesy with it. But I feel like Villeneuve isn't going to sign up to something too cheesy. But out of all those people, I'm not sure how I feel about Tom Holland as Bond.
Like
He's Spider-Man already. I don't know if you can do too big.
Look, Tom Holland, like, respect to him and everything, but I don't feel like in any film project that he's ever really struck me as something, as an actor that can really, really makes me think about his performance after I've seen the film. I think he's fine. I've never had an issue with any of his performances, but he's not somebody who I'd be like, yes, has to be helming this franchise. So Elordi's interesting too, but you're like, it's kind of like the Aaron Taylor Johnson thing. It's like, well, I guess if you're kind of going into a young Bond, he's a little bit more bad boy than anything. Maybe that's a good way to go. But I'm not sure if that's Villeneuve as well. It's just I'm so fascinated by where this is going to go. But I'm sure he wouldn't have signed up to. He's a smart guy, and he's got a good track record. So we'll just see where this goes.
Yeah. I don't know if I was to pick any of them, I'd maybe go Harris Dickinson right now.
I think so.
But I can see why you'd go for Lordy. But he's also not British, so there is that.
Yeah, and Harris Dickinson's starting to get into like the filmmaking chair now, starting to direct his own movies. It's an interesting period for him. He's at a real crossroads in his career. Like, he can really like take off in one direction or stay in as like a sort of an indie guy.
And they're not like quick films to make. So this, as much as you're making a lot of money and it's going to catapult you to new heights, it is going to kind of limit what you can do year to year.
And
maybe that's
a lot of watches.
Yeah, you have to do a lot of adverts for beer.
Yeah.
And you're not allowed to wear suits in any other film. I heard that there's a rule where if you are the new Bond, you're not actually allowed to.
Did Daniel Craig never wear a suit in another movie?
Not a tuxedo. I think there is. Yeah, apparently there's a rule.
That's crazy.
It takes away from the Bond image if you see him elsewhere in a tuxedo. So.
Yeah, I guess like he was still Bond when he did the.
I
first
might be talking out my ass, by the way. I might be.
I mean, I
swear I heard that.
It sounds like something that would be real. It sounds like with some stuff with a stuffy, long legacy British IP. It feels like something that would. Be real.
And there's something weird as well, like these little rules that you didn't know existed, but when you know, it kind of like you're like, oh yeah, I guess so. Like apparently, villains aren't allowed to use iPhones. That was something that Rian Johnson was talking about when he made Knives Out, and he said that was the big tell that Chris Evans, spoilers, in the first film, is the villain. He doesn't use an iPhone in the film, whereas everybody else is using an iPhone because they won't allow villains to use their technology. So.
Whoa. I'm gonna like look at movies in a completely different way.
Yeah.
It's like
sorry.
Wow.
Sorry, everyone.
But if I see Android phones, then I know I'm safe, right? Like I can
What, if
guess.
everybody has an Android phone, or
if I'm seeing no Apple representation in the movie, I'm like, okay, it's a Sony movie, for example.
But But if you're seeing lots of people with iPhones, then all of a sudden somebody with an Android,
oh shit,
like,
it's gonna ruin
it. Are they the villain? They might just be. So yeah, that's a bit of a weird one. I just remember Rian Johnson talking about that not long after Knives Out came out. But yeah. There you go. Anyway, I did say two big pieces of film news, so I appreciate where people do want to get into the reviews as well. So maybe briefly, you might have known this already, but The Social Network 2 has been announced. We're getting a sequel.
With Fincher back in the chair. No?
No, not this time. Aaron Sorkin back as writer and also director.
Was Sorkin's last movie that he directed, was that still Molly's Game, or has he directed since then?
Yeah, he's directed since then. What was the...
I really liked Molly's Game, but I would agree that like directing wasn't the film's strong suit. Writing is obviously Sorkin's bag, but like, yeah.
Yeah, he did... he did the Steve Jobs film. No, he just wrote the Steve Jobs film. That was Danny Boyle.
Boyle, yeah.
Sorry. Did he? Yeah. So, no, he did the protest film with Sacha Baron Cohen.
Yes. What was that called again?
What
I
was that
didn't.
called? I'm googling it. I'm googling it
It's like
now.
the 13th something or whatever.
The Trial of the Chicago 7.
I knew there was a number in
Yeah.
there.
So, has he directed anything since? Doesn't look. Oh, Being the Ricardos in 2021.
Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah, actually, did we? I saw that film. Did you watch that film?
I didn't see the winner of best makeup or whatever.
I don't remember loving it.
That was
But
Nicole
yeah,
Kidman.
I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, I think I saw somebody else talking about this and how it's slightly worrying when he is allowed just to go off and do his own thing and he isn't kind of reined in by a director like Fincher. So, it could be good, it could be bad. I don't know if there's any news on whether Jesse Eisenberg's coming back to reprise the role of Mark Zuckerberg, but apparently it's going to look into like the effect that social media has on kids' phones and electing, helping or what would you call it? Skewing elections in other countries. So that kind of the rise of social media and I know. I'm not sure. I'm sold, but I'm also.
This sounds like all credit to him, like Godspeed, but this sounds like really murky water to try to like traverse. That sounds like a really difficult movie to pull off, especially since so much has happened since that initial Social Network movie came out. That's rough.
It could end up being like old man shouting at things.
That's the worry, isn't it?
That's the worry, isn't it? Yeah,
it's definitely going to have a sort of point of view, and whether like it's going to be difficult for that to come out without coming across as preachy. But we'll see. Maybe he's cooking up something.
Maybe. So we'll see. But yeah, just Social Network. Honestly, I absolutely love that film. So interested to see where they go with that. And do you know if they do get Jesse Eisenberg back to play Zuckerberg, I'm into it. I'm ready to see what's happening there. And I don't think anything can take away from the first film anyway. So
no,
see what they got cooking, as you say.
That's it. That's as the kids say, Alex. But like,
it just goes to show.
It just goes to show, like with Bond and with this news, it's like you just don't know till the goddamn thing comes out. But it's fun to speculate anyway. Anyway, Alex, I'm actually chomping at the bit to talk about this movie with you.
Well, shall we get into it then?
Please.
So, 28 years later is the latest film in the 28 Days franchise. It's been not 28 years since 28 Days. How many years has it been? I don't know.
So, it's been 23. It came out in 2002. 28 Days later was 2002, and 28 weeks later was 2007.
That's it. You've got it. So, yeah, it's been a little while. 28 Days Later was a Danny Boyle film written by Alex Garland, which was kind of very digital heavy, shot on a shoestring budget, but really kind of catapulted British zombie horror films, or just the zombie genre in general, completely inspired a generation of zombie storytelling. The Walking Dead comics essentially just rip off the opening of 28 Days Later, but within an American context.
We were talking about this before, weren't we, a few weeks ago, because the timeline of that comic book starting and the movie 28 Days Later coming out were really close, and we were like, we did do the running zombies first.
Well, it's not so much the running zombies, but it's the waking up in a hospital because, something had happened to you just before the apocalypse started, and then you wake up and the whole world's changed and you have to figure out what the hell is going on. So that's the big one there. Apparently a big inspiration for The Last of Us, which is funny because it's kind of turned around now. Alex Garland has said that The Last of Us was a big inspiration for 28 years later. He's a massive fan of the game. So that's quite funny how that has kind of weaved its way in, and you can definitely see some of that in 28 years later. 28 weeks later, not directed by Danny Boyle. I can't remember who directed it. Not as well loved, but I think it's still a relatively charming film, if charming is scary and horrible and gruesome. But with both of those films, it plays a lot with kind of different zombie tropes and turns them on the head a little bit in fun ways. And obviously just having a zombie apocalypse that's very British and very, especially in 28 years later, very kind of captured within just our little island. So, that's a very interesting thing. But yeah, I thought I had seen 28 Days Later, but I came back to it before the film and I was like, oh, I don't think I've seen 28 Days Later. I think I've seen bits of it.
Yeah.
But had a lot of fun with it. I think it's fantastic. 28 Weeks Later, I had definitely seen, which is funny, but that was like a sleepover film for me. That was like the film you'd chuck on when you weren't really supposed to as a kid.
We're coming at this at the same point of view. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think I have more memories. Well, I definitely have more memories of 28 Weeks Later, despite the fact that there's so much imagery from 28 Days Later that's kind of in my brain. But as I was watching the full film through, I was like, oh no, I've not seen this from front to back.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. I think I'm the same as you. I watched 28 Weeks Later like tens of times. It was a sleepover movie for me as well, but I think that's because it's 2007. I'm like 11 years old and I'm starting to get into blood and guts and gore. And that's what that movie sort of delivers. Like 28 Days Later is way more like, it's way more of obviously a Danny Boyle movie and an Alex Garland venture. So it has a lot more things on its mind, and 28 Weeks Later is kind of like just like a US military occupation action zombie shitty dad guilt movie. I was a really big Robert Carlyle fan at that age too, and I was like, I think he was half the draw of that movie for me,
100%
for sure. And I think he's the opening sequence as well. I think Boyle directed the opening sequence of that movie.
I heard that as well. Yeah, he which kind of makes sense because it's the most like 28 Days Later, and then everything else. Like you said, very kind of American, but almost kind of critical of the kind of America's involvement within UK politics and stuff like that. Like,
it's very cold and it's kind of like, it's very, it kind of treats the, it's US government kind of pigeonholing people into this section of the city, keeping them there, and then lighting the fire underneath them whenever shit gets too hairy.
It's like the Americans are the saviors of the day, but actually when they come in, they're just a bunch of fools who haven't really thought the whole thing through.
Except for Jeremy Renner, or Renovations, as we like
Jeremy Renovations.
Yeah.
God bless him. I like Jeremy Renner. I always like him in these films. He's a funny guy.
And he comes across as capable, and you're like, when he's telling the kid to zigzag through the streets to avoid the snipers, you're like, when I was a kid, I was like, oh my God, if a sniper ever tries to take me out in the street, I'm going to zigzag.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's interesting. So you have complete...
Which, to be fair, over the last couple of weeks, that scenario has gotten closer and closer.
It's getting closer and closer every day, every year that passes.
It's now something you can actively consider. So thank you, Danny Boyle, potentially in the future.
Thank you.
Not Danny Boyle. Not even Danny Boyle. Thank you, Jeremy Renner.
Thank you, Renovations. So, like, you're coming at this franchise now, 28 years later. So I feel like people, I actually do think that people are kind of divided on the franchise. I was quite surprised reading reviews online, kind of getting public opinion in general, where people kind of seem to be kind of split on which movie they like more. I was actually a bit more surprised, but I always felt like, to me, it's obvious that 28 Days Later is the better of the two films, and it has the most vision, it has the most to say, and it's the most provocative film of the two. But there seems to be like a lot of people who were like us at that age and were fans of the action heavy style, people who like that type of zombie movie, the carnage of it.
There's a lot of cool moments. Like,
sure,
trapping everybody inside one giant room and then just having one zombie come in and F shit up.
Well, that's it. And so, whenever you're coming into 28 years later, are you coming in as, the Danny Boyle fan? Or are you a casual fan that watched both of the movies throughout the years and had no idea that, like, it was a Danny Boyle? You're not as in tune as, say, people who are really big fans of Danny Boyle or people who listen to this podcast or like ourselves.
Well, as somebody who had only realized they hadn't seen 28 Days Later, I guess as the years go by, I'm probably now more interested in, Danny Boyle returning to the franchise rather than just being like, oh, I want to see where this story goes.
Sure.
But then you and I, we're cinema people. That's the whole point.
Exactly.
So Danny Boyle means something, and he's a homegrown director, and
of course. And like, I'm always going to, I think maybe Yesterday was probably the only one that kind of was like, I'm not sure if it completely worked for me. But then again, he wasn't really like a big driving force behind that one. He was kind of more like a director for hire on Yesterday. But what I'm trying to get at is that I think I'm seeing a lot of opinion on this movie online, and expectation was a really big part of it. Where 28 years later and we're going to get into it, is something that offers you something different. Very, very different, and at times very weird, and it takes a certain amount of openness from the audience to kind of really embrace that. But I feel like, it's Danny Boyle, what do you expect? But there does seem to be an audience that really wanted a 28 weeks later type of movie
oh, interesting.
Where we'll get into it. The first 40 minutes of this movie potentially could offer, if it stayed, like the first 40 minutes the whole way through. And I'm going to, I'm so excited to get into like why it's not going to be that movie. So,
but we will keep it spoiler free for a minute, everyone.
Absolutely.
So you're in the spoiler free section right now. We'll give you ample warning when we get to spoilers. But yeah, I think coming into this film, it's not a film throughout the years that I was like, oh, we have to have another one of these. When it got announced, I was like, oh, great, I'm interested to see what's going on. But I wasn't, jumping at the bit for it or anything like that. If anything, since 28 days and 28 weeks later, we have become inundated with zombie content, from films to video games to TV shows. That we've almost been oversaturated with zombie stuff. And I guess there was part of me that was worried we weren't going to get anything new from these films. And I was worried that for a film that kind of did really bring something new to the table, that maybe they wouldn't be able to do it again. But I am happy to report that I think, they were worthy of kind of relighting the spark under this franchise and doing something different again with the zombie culture and stories and tropes. And there is obviously still a lot of that in there. It's definitely, like I said, inspired by like The Last of Us and other things that have come prior because of 28 Days Later. But yeah, no, it manages to say something new and something different and something very, again, inherently British.
Sure.
About British culture, about male toxic culture, about traditions and mythology and legends, and it's all kind of baked into this in a way that really kind of surprised me. And I'm glad it's doing well. I'm glad it's doing well in the States, but there's definitely some elements of this where I'm just like, I don't know if you would fully get what's going on if you weren't British. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah. I think, yeah, that is quite interesting. I think you're so right that it is completely like, it is a British movie through and through. Probably one of the more British, I know, big budget genre movies we've ever had. And yeah, tied specifically not to just like modern British sensibilities, but also ancient, medieval, if you will. Sensibilities. There's a lot of medieval imagery literally thrown in, footage from Henry V and and archers, and there's not really much shooting and guns in this movie. Of all of the free movies, we're going back to basics. We're going back to bows and arrows.
I'm not even sure. Is there a gun in this?
Yes, there is guns later on.
Okay. Well,
without like getting into,
All right, well,
Spoilers,
we'll
no.
get into that later. I can't remember the guns, but yeah, we are physically, literally 28 years later from the initial outbreak in 28 days later, and the zombie rage virus has been contained just to the UK, and everywhere else is fine, and everybody who has survived is quarantined in the UK, and they just kind of have to live their lives, and we kind of see that from the point of view of one kind of small community, which I believe is on Holy Island up north.
Yeah, so northeast of England, yeah.
Yeah, so we are very, very north of England. This community is on an island, that's separated by a causeway
Yeah,
into
really cool.
mainland England. Very kind of cool element there, and that's how they've been able to kind of survive all these years. Is when the tide goes out, then the causeway is revealed. When the tide goes in, nothing can pass. They can't even get back to mainland UK. So this small path of stone is relatively easy to keep protected. And I guess it looks at how a culture has kind of survived and how a culture has had to kind of learn to, kind of begin again in a way, and how that culture is almost going back to like a very kind of British old school
Oh, very much so.
sensibilities. And you are kind of introduced to this at first, and you're like, oh, I guess this is just how they've survived, but you kind of see some of the cracks in that, and how I guess that kind of culture doesn't always kind of mix with young people who kind of want to move on.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Like,
Yeah.
I'm beating around the bush a little bit here, but it has a lot to say about kind of mythology, legends, and the effect they can have on men who are softies like you and me.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I would not. I would not survive 10 seconds in this world. I would not want Aaron Taylor Johnson to be my dad as well, as well intentioned as he is.
Yeah, that's the thing, and it is quite. It is empathetic to the fact. It's not. I don't think it's completely damning of kind of the old school British values and ideologies and stories. It is clearly biased against it, I guess, because we're seeing it through our new young character Spike, played by Alfie Williams, fantastic by the way, how he's amazing, and how he doesn't fully mesh with the kind of route that his father, played by Aaron Taylor Johnson, has essentially set out for him. He wants him to become this kind of glorified, this is my son and he's good at zombie killing,
It's not like, but it's not done in a way like How to Train Your Dragon or something like that, where it's like these boundaries are set instantly, and it's this Disney father who's just like, oh, no son of mine is going to do it. It actually, the movie kind of puts you in Spike's shoes and gives you this sort of like sort of false sense of security in his father, where it's like, you can see where his father's coming from. He seems like a really nice guy, and then all his ideology starts to kind of feed in organically, and it then becomes a negative father and son relationship as a product of the environment that they've recreated for themselves. It's really, really interesting.
Yeah, which is very much like the men are the hunters and the women stay at home to sort things out. Like it's
kind of like the village that they live in on the causeway almost reminds me of like an old castle keep. It's kind of gone back to that like Mott and Bailey castle sensibility, and the village hall in the middle is like the castle keep, and within the castle keep we've got like a poster with everybody's job role on it. It's like agricultural. It's like it's set in traditional values. There's a picture of Queen Elizabeth II on the wall.
Yes, yeah.
But that's an interesting thing too, because this movie's also dealing with being sort of a semi-sequel to the original 2002 movie, where it's saying what happened. Well, what if that's when everything stopped? Was 2002? So we're going on the timeline that Queen Elizabeth II didn't pass away.
Not like that anyway. She probably passed away.
Yeah, probably, definitely. Or she's Queen Zombie.
Maybe she's going to turn up at some point.
Yeah, she's one of those ones that eats worms on the ground.
That would blow my mind if she turned up.
But she's still wearing the crown.
Maybe she is queen of a community somewhere within the UK. You know,
sure. And there's another disgraced British icon that we'll talk about in the spoiler section as well. But yeah, it's really interesting notion to play with. And also, you know, the rest of the world's moved on with technology, with smartphones, iPhones, whatever you have. And we're seeing Spike. Young Spike grew up in the world where he doesn't even know what that is, any of that is.
Yeah.
And
he's like, what? He's 12, isn't he? So he's born within this. I was going to say pandemic, but I guess it is a pandemic. He's born within this world of England that is very much stunted and / regressed from 2002. So yeah, it's very interesting, and I was really interested to see what Alex Garland returning to kind of what he was trying to say. And I don't think he's a writer that always wraps it up neatly with a bow, and I don't think he has to either. So and there's 2 more sequels to this in the timeline, so we'll see what comes next. But I do struggle a little bit with Garland sometimes. Like, I don't know exactly what he's trying to say, but I really enjoyed kind of picking it apart with this film, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I completely understand. And I think that's why he's sort of best whenever he... Like, I do think he's been very successful as a director, and I do really enjoy his projects. I really enjoyed Civil War last year.
I did not.
I know you didn't as much.
Yeah.
But I do feel that he is best as a collaborator for sure, and a concept guy. And I think sometimes his work can come across as a little bit cold and a little bit distant. And like when you put someone like Danny Boyle, he is emotional, an emotional filmmaker. I think that's a really good marriage. And it becomes a film that has a lot to say.
Absolutely. I listened to an interview with Alex Garland after the film. I think it was the podcast is Script Apart, so give some kudos there, I guess. But it was really interesting to hear how he doesn't go to the set of these things. He's like, I wrote the script, I passed it to Danny, and then I was interested to see what he came back with and what stayed in, what came out, what was slightly changed. He was just like, I don't want to be a part of that process. Like, it's Danny's film now. I just kind of write the blueprint, and I thought that was really interesting. And I think you're right. There's a good marriage there between Danny Boyle and Alex Garland, and how that works. And very interested to see how that moves forward. We've got Nia DaCosta already made the next film in this.
Yeah,
in this
6 months away now, isn't it?
Yeah. On my birthday, it releases at the moment, January the 16th. So
fantastic. Is it something? So does that work out? Isn't it like 28 weeks? After the release of this movie is the release of Bone Temple. Right, okay.
I heard that, yeah. I mean, I haven't done the maths myself, but I hope that is true, because that's pretty cool. We'll see. We'll see if that sticks to its release date, I guess. But that'll be fun. I'm very excited for it now.
While we're in the spoiler-free section, I still think it's really fun to talk about, the filmmaking part of the movie is
let's do it.
Is kind of the fun of the movie for me. And it's like from the get-go, from the opening sequence for the whole project, you're just kind of in awe of like, wow, okay, right, we're not playing it safe. This is a big studio movie, and we're doing weird stuff here, and it's like, and it's so effective. I'm just seeing shots and compositions and editing that I've never seen done in a zombie movie before. And I knew to expect it a little bit of Danny Boyle with putting GoPros and iPhones and using all sorts of rigs to kind of achieve these effects. But it didn't ever feel just like a tech demo. It felt like it was completely in service of the story. And really interesting music that was incorporated with Young Fathers, a Scottish band I love, who did the soundtrack of this movie.
I didn't know that going in. That wasn't until the credits popped up, and I was like, "Oh, Young Fathers did that. That's really interesting."
Exactly, and it completely marries with Boyle's like directing, which is just like it just catches you off guard. And the real strength of that when you're watching a movie like that is that you're constantly stimulated. Like whenever
Mm.
every scene to scene, it evokes something like it evokes thought. Like it sounds like such a basic thing to say, but like this movie just prompts you to think constantly and ponder on it as it
Mm.
goes, whilst being entertained and moved and being kind of funny at the same time.
Yeah.
It's and as you leave the cinema, I just feel like this movie kind of has festered in me as the weeks have gone on. Like it's it's kind of just boiled, and as I've meditated on thinking about the movie, I listened to the soundtrack a few times.
Mm.
It's a grower. It's a real grower, and I did have the reaction when I came straight out of the movie. I turned to Lauren and I said that
Producer
this is
Lauren?
producer Lauren. I turned to producer Lauren and I said, "This is not for everybody, but I fucking loved it." And you gotta go with your gut. And like this movie, like definitely prompted me to be moved in a way that not even the original movie did for me. And I love the
No.
original movie too. Um, and yeah, this is like I can't wait to revisit it. Do you
Yeah.
feel similar?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Worth saying for people who don't know, the film was practically all shot on iPhones with like special lenses and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah,
If you look at some of the behind the scenes photography, there's full rigs set up with like 50 iPhones in a row. Yeah,
yeah, it's
capturing
crazy.
a lot of the kills that you see. It almost like pauses on the penetration of an arrow in a zombie's head, and then like
Yes,
does like a 180-degree turnaround,
bullet
like really
time.
kind of
Yeah.
like, yeah, very much like its own version of bullet time that's
Hmm.
quite raw and there.
Oh,
Yeah,
the infrared stuff. Oh, is gnarly.
infrared stuff, fantastic. And you see it straight away as soon as like, I don't know if you had this within your cinema screen, but you just like notice straight away that the ratio of the actual of the actual film itself is quite thin and long. Did you find that?
Yeah,
I don't.
100%, especially in those sort of like more dramatic moments in the house,
Mm.
with Spike's mother and father played by Jodie Comer and Aaron
Yeah,
Taylor Johnson.
which we haven't really spoken about Jodie Comer much. I guess because she appears more in the second half of the film. So I guess to get into that stuff, we'll get into it in the spoiler section. But yeah, again, like another fantastic cast of British people. Yeah, and I love the way it was shot. It really stylizes a few elements of it, which is quite ballsy because it almost takes it into a, I don't want to say magical fantasy, but it's definitely playing with like mythology again in
Yeah,
that kind of Nordic mythology, even though
I
we're not, you know.
there's a certain sequence regarding the causeway that's a chase scene.
And
We'll probably that's as far as I want to go in terms of like spoiling anything. That if you see like the aurora borealis, and it's a beautiful ethereal sky, and we're seeing in England that is devoid of technology and electricity now.
yeah,
So
no light pollution.
exactly, and like the greens, like I know it sounds so dorky, but like seeing like the greenery in this movie, it's so vibrant and it pops, and like
Mm,
and the beauty of the northeast English rural landscape is really at the forefront and center here. And yeah, there's some really trippy visuals going on there that are really overt and very swinging for the fences. But it just completely works because there's so much heart behind Danny Boyle as a filmmaker that just really comes through.
yeah, and I was going to add to that kind of feeling of emotion
Hmm.
that you mentioned. I cried at this film. I haven't cried at any of the 28 Days Later films before. It really takes some big emotional swings that kind of surprised me. And we'll get into all that in a minute, I guess. But yeah, I was with you. I love this. I was blown away. It's a shame that it is like a part one. Like we are kind of in this kind of stage where there's a lot of part one films out there right now, and they do, I think, do a slight disservice to the film. Like you do get like a bit of a roundup in this film, like it is its own thing, but it's still setting up more for the next film, and it doesn't feel like you fully finished everything yet.
Sure.
Which obviously that means I kind of have to wait to kind of conclude my feelings on some of the kind of emotional stuff that's going on, and it ends in a slightly odd way, which we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, shall we get into the spoilers, Chris? Shall we talk a
let's
little
go
bit more
for
in
it,
depth
man.
again? All right, so everybody, spoiler alert. We are now getting into spoilers. All right, so what do you want to talk about? I cried. There's big zombie willies.
I was about to say, do you just want to get the giant zombie dawn out the way?
What do you want to do? You want to talk about these alphas?
Yeah, we got two alphas in this movie, right? We got Samson is like the last half of the movie.
Yes.
Or like, and then
and then the first one who we do kill, don't we?
Yeah, he gets like harpooned, like a fire harpoon. Like he ain't coming back from that.
Yeah. So the rage virus has evolved now, even more so. Where it's like almost it definitely plays with the kind of humanity of people infected by the rage virus, like how much of them is still there and how much of them is just taken over by the rage virus.
Certainly in the third act, yeah.
But another kind of version, there's another kind of evolution again, is that some people who've been affected by it have almost been like roided up by it, and become these giant, towering, big dick swinging zombies,
which
are huge and incredibly difficult to kill.
Yeah. I mean, like, not taking away thematically from anything going on, but that thing was huge.
That thing was huge. My partner turned to me, not during the film, but after the film, and she said that I reminded her of an alpha. So
shut up.
She did.
Pull your trousers down now and prove it. Prove it to the listeners.
Everybody's clicking onto YouTube, or they're clicking off. No, apparently it was to do with the long hair and beard.
That makes more sense.
Yeah.
Maybe it's because he was in the train, and you seem like somebody who likes trains. Maybe like you're a train guy or something like that.
I'm not a train guy.
Everybody, a train spotter. There's like, but we've been told now that from Boyle himself that these were prosthetics.
Yes, yeah. That's because there were a lot of children on set.
Yes, there's laws against that, and also I'm actually glad for the guy, because like that thing was too big. I mean, I was kind of a bit upset for him actually.
Well, I'm guessing there's some kind of like force perception stuff going on anyway, because he towers above the other.
Oh yeah, there's some force. Yeah.
Like he's nearly as big as a tree, right?
Yeah, and there's like there's a shot of him jumping off a train where the camera is on the ground, and he jumps like basically on the camera, and it's like upskirting, but we've done anyway. We're spending too much.
You're
time
very obsessed with the dong part.
No, absolutely. And the internet is too. I keep seeing like every trailer for this on Instagram or on Reels is just like everybody commenting saying more like 28 inches later. I'm like, okay, you've all made the joke now.
Well, I can't say I was. You kind of become desensitized to it. It didn't like play a massive part. Like every now and then, it's just like swinging at you on the screen. You're like, big Willy.
I was so emotionally invested in this movie that I watched that shit straight faced.
Yeah, like it's a penis. I don't like at the end of the day.
My characters were in peril, and I didn't. The penis was secondary.
Exactly. It's kind of like Showgirls. When you see so much nudity, you just go like, oh yeah, there's nudity. It doesn't really matter anymore.
Yeah. Oh yeah. 100%. We need to just watch it again just to see.
What, Showgirls or 28 Years Later?
Just two separate screens, like a LAN party. We just get them back to back. Anyway, let's
move off the penis and onto more wholesome things. What do you want to talk about? The emotionality of it. The second half of the film, we have Alfie Williams taking his very ill mother, played by Jodie Comer, out to visit what could potentially be somebody who could help save her, which is Ralph Fiennes, who plays Dr. Kelson. in the film, a guy that this community of people have basically just said that he's some weirdo over there, stay away from him, he's crazy.
Yes.
There is an element that he's he is very much...
He's peculiar.
He's peculiar. He has a philosophy on death, which kind of punctuates the second half of the film. That kind of really grapples with the idea that death comes for everyone, and we need to almost come to terms with it in a way. And he has a machine where he smokes the skulls of dead people and dead zombies, and kind of cleans up their skulls and memorializes them in these giant bone structures. Which, when I knew the name of the sequel was The Bone Temple, I thought something odd was going to happen with Dr. Kelson here, and we were going to get trapped here, and that was how the film was going to end. But it turns out that is almost subverted as well, because you assume something like that might happen. But actually, he does seem like a relatively
okay.
nice
I actually did have an inkling that he would have been a warm character in some way.
Okay.
I don't know. I think you just buy into the ideology that the movie's kind of selling you and kind of land one way or the other.
Did you not think, like, Spike, the naivety of a child to think that this guy who's 28 years deep in the virus, living by himself, is not going to be some kind of monster now? Did you not lean towards that?
Well,
at
I
all?
guess we get the flashback of Spike's dad Jamie telling us the story of their encounter with Dr. Kelson, where he lines up like 250 bodies on the riverbank and then waves at them, like he said, to come over. And he said how that was a weird experience, but like from the perspective of watching the movie, that kind of just seems like a weird guy. He's kind of like, yeah, but the movie does kind of set him up to be this almost like Colonel Kurtz sort of like Apocalypse Now figure. The trailer certainly set him up to be that sort of thing anyway. And yeah, you're right, there is a little bit of subversion, and I thought he was going to be a bit off kilter, but I didn't expect him to be so warm and so, bringing such emotional provocation later on that kind of comes out of nowhere but really oddly works.
Yeah,
that was unexpected.
Yeah,
I think it's naive of Spike to ever think that watching the movie, I think we all know that Jodie Comer's like, whatever's happening, this doctor's not going to have the magic medicine to fix her, but you can understand how a boy in this upbringing and world can kind of, he's never seen a doctor in his life, he has to get explained to him what a GP is at one point. So we can completely be on board with and almost kind of buy into the dream that maybe something miraculous is going to happen. And it's worth saying now that Jodie Comer, his mother Isla, she's bedridden for the entire movie, well, 2/3 of the movie basically. And it's revealed later on she has brain cancer.
Yes. Right? Yeah, maybe breast and brain cancer, because I think
yes, it spreads to the brain. Yes.
Yeah. Which I think it kind of reveals that Jodie Comer knew this, but obviously her state of being doesn't allow her to remember things all the time.
She's delirious and hallucinating and coming in and out of consciousness. Yeah.
It seems like Aaron Taylor-Johnson's character has been probably keeping this from Spike as well, but maybe it was a thing both of them were keeping from him, and that kind of leads him down this path, which maybe he shouldn't have gone on, but it also works as a bit of a coming of age story for him. Worth saying, on these travels, they meet I think like a Norwegian or a Swedish soldier who is accidentally
Swedish
gotten caught up in I think crash landed close to the island and therefore is there, and he basically reveals like the quarantine is there, like there's no getting off here now, like nobody's allowed to leave.
So Eric.
Eric, I just have to deal with this, which kind of plays into kind of Garland and Danny Boyle's kind of obsession with the military and kind of how they react to these things. And again, I guess he's played in quite a
he
there's like a mentality and an attitude to his character, which I think is not particularly nice at times.
it
Even though they
sees
do play
the
with the fact that he is just like a young kid, which
yeah.
again is again commentary all at the same time.
Yeah, and also he is like, yeah, he is thrust into, so his his ship that goes, does coast guarding around the UK crashed for some reason, and a bunch of them were landed there. We get a sequence where a bunch of them are picked off by
Mm-hmm.
zombies, and he obviously survived this encounter. So yeah, he's stuck here, and he's kind of openly admits to Spike that, like, well, I can't leave. As soon as you touch foot on land, you're part of the quarantine too. And he's kind of like very quickly kind of being like, oh shit, I guess I have to live here for the rest of my life. And I like Eric a lot in this movie. He's like a well needed bit of comic relief at a quite
Yeah,
stressful period of the movie.
yeah.
Um, like there's a great sequence where he's showing his smartphone. He's like, oh, I've only got a couple percent battery left, and obviously Spike's never seen this before, and he's completely like, amazed by what he's seeing.
Mm.
And he shows him his girlfriend back home in Sweden, and she's got like Botox and lip filler, and it's a very funny gag, and like Spike says, "What's wrong with her face?" It's kind of, he's like, "It happens to my friend whenever he has shellfish."
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it's a really funny, like, everybody in our cinema laughed at that part. But yeah, it is fascinating.
he also works there as a kind of as a way to kind of understand what's going on outside of the UK as well, and how life has just carried on
And you're
in the
right.
way that we know it to be. So it's quite an interesting. He's an interesting story device, as he has a gun. He's the guy with the gun you were talking about. I said there were no guns in the film.
Well, like the sequence
Of
where
course there are guns.
where the soldiers are getting picked off by the zombies, they're firing guns at them, and they're, yeah, there's a bit of altercation going on there. But yeah, you're right, because so he kind of has this perspective then. So now you're thinking of a country that's 20 something years behind, 20 to 28 years behind, obviously. And almost below it's below the status of a third world country now. So
Mm.
it makes sense for someone young and naive like Eric to kind of have a really low opinion of the people. Like, he's almost as if you're going back to the medieval period, and he's dealing with
Yeah,
peasantry.
yeah, you're right. There is that. There is definitely that.
So yeah, it's a really interesting character to bring in halfway through the film, and he really worked for me. Actually, I thought he gets a lot of credit for me. That Edvin Writing plays Eric. He's really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then we get pregnant zombies.
Yeah, so I couldn't tell if it was the same zombie we see from earlier. I'm going to assume it is.
Yeah, there's like a shot of her by the river with other zombies. Yeah,
Yeah, but part of me wasn't sure if we were just seeing that there are pregnant zombies. Like, I wasn't sure if it was the same one. Maybe it is the same one.
She did look very similar, but you're right. Yeah,
But in this moment of giving birth, it's almost revealed to be like a very primal instinct that she's a woman who's giving birth. She is not really a monster, as we would call them, I guess. The zombie within that moment, and Jodie Comer helps her give birth to what is a perfectly healthy child, not infected with the rage virus.
yeah.
And as soon as they cut the umbilical cord, she's back to being violent and angry again. But it raises a lot of questions, interesting questions. I think I'm not, because there are no answers at this point. Doesn't take away from it. I don't think whether it was a setup or not. I'm more intrigued by what's going on here. Are we getting pregnant and then getting infected? Are we getting pregnant whilst infected? And if so, who's getting you pregnant? Is it Samson? I feel like it's Samson, the alpha, right? Because he when he goes into the train, he's actively searching for the mum and the baby, right? He's not just on the rampage for them. So there's definitely something weird going on. Makes me wonder if that's how alphas are created, potentially. But yeah, there's something weird going on there. Do you have any thoughts on the baby that isn't infected?
it's kind of like the pack mentality. I'm thinking, we're saying on the route of medieval England. Well, what used to exist in medieval forestry England that doesn't exist anymore? Well, wolves, and wolves used to live in packs, and now it's kind of like the wolves have returned and kind of reclaimed the land in a way. But it's also an extension of. It's a beginning of a conversation that Dr. Kelson, Ralph Fiennes' character, begins later on, and it's the thing with zombie movies that's often troubling. Can be the fun part of them, but in a movie like this, tonally seems to fit. Is that these used to be human beings?
Yeah,
and I think 28 days later, obviously because it's raw and fresh, we still feel that, but 28 weeks later, I think kind of loses that a little bit, and I feel like a lot of zombie movies in general, and that's
there's usually like no question. It's like they're not them anymore, and that's it. So
yeah,
shoot them in the head as much as you want.
Yeah, and that's the whole thing with the Bone Temple, the structures that Ralph Fiennes is doing. It's his weird way of sort of honoring those that have fallen, and it's all really beautiful and meditative, and it's actually, it adds to the horror of the whole event. It makes it way more traumatic. And we see backflashes of a terrace street in England that used to be bustling and now it's decayed. Those images that Boyle's sort of inserted early on into the film kind of recur in your mind then afterwards. It leaves the world feeling quite sad and hollow and sort of a shadow of itself. And obviously, should we talk about the most sort of effective sequence in the film? It's hard. It's hard to.
Before we do, who's getting the zombies pregnant, Chris? You went on a lovely philosophical rant there, but who's getting the zombies pregnant?
I mean, like, is it?
Give me theories.
I mean, I don't think it's like, because are you saying because the baby is like an immaculate conception, perfectly fine baby?
Well, we don't know
uninfected.
Well, yeah, I guess not infected, but not immaculate conception. We assume not anyway.
Well, yeah. So I'm obviously it's going to be like Samson or an alpha or yeah. That makes sense to me. Yeah.
You don't think it's Aaron Taylor Johnson?
I mean, we've seen him get around once in the movie, but like I don't think he's like that.
Yeah, he's a bit of a sleazeball again.
Like going back to that, like how did you feel about Taylor Johnson? And there's a saying, when the whole thing, it's quite hard. The movie does challenge you whenever they first come back from their disastrous outing into the woods the first time with him and Spike, and they return glorious. Spike got his like first 10 kills and he took on the giant, when Spike is feeling guilt and regret because, well, in reality he took down one and he ran away like a child would.
Like he caused a lot of the
escalation. But his father is kind of like portraying this in a way that kind of bolsters his son in an image that he wants to see. And then we get a sequence of Spike witnessing his dad, having some extramarital affair stuff going on. But like, I didn't feel judgmental of him.
Not
in the movie.
Not really. I think because he's quite a grey character in terms of he is caring.
I do think he is.
There's empathy there, and he is a amalgamation of like the culture that surrounds him, and
it's a hard fucking world to live in.
And that is what this community has had to use to survive. So obviously, I think he is straddling the line between modern day masculinity but he also has the traits of all the kind of masculinity that is not good, the boisterousness, the lying, the temperament. He does hit Spike at one point, though it feels like he's immediately regretful about this. There's a moment later on where Spike stands up to him, and Aaron Johnson, you can feel he's about to flip his lid, but decides to leave. He leaves by also punching a wall.
Yeah, he punches a wall. Yeah,
take some of that frustration out. Like he represents all these kind of bad qualities of masculinity, whilst at the same time doing whatever he can to protect his son. So I just think he's a great character, and I a grey character and a great character. I was very interested, and I guess a little bit sad that he doesn't play a part in the second half of the film, really.
Yeah, I
But
guess there's just so much to explore with Isla, with his mother, with Jodie Comer, that it's almost like a handing over of parental sort of perspective whenever we get her perspective on the world, which is naturally more motherly and empathetic. And then by the time we meet Kelson, and kind of represents a part of Isla as well, where we're just getting a different male figure who has a completely different perspective on something that Spike thought he knew his entire childhood.
And she's speaking a lot about her father, who she refers to as being very kind, very silly. There's a great moment where she's like remembering him in the field, and you see like big hands kind of grab onto her shoulders in a tender way, but like it's all a bit kind of like weird, like that, you know, giant hands on on like an adult woman. It's strange, but it works. It's kind of beautiful all at the same time as she's remembering all these things. And she does refer to Spike as dad a lot, because she, you know, unfortunately she is losing her mind a little bit. But yeah, when it gets to Dr. Kelson, and you know, he reveals she has cancer, and she definitely doesn't have long to live, and I guess they decide to almost, you know, speed up the process of that death and take her out in a more peaceful way. I was crying in the cinema. I was a bit of a mess. Well, not like a mess. You know, I'm not like blubbering, but I'm tearing up a little bit. You know, I'm dabbing the tears away. It hit close to home. I think as well, it was, you know, I think it was the way they had to handle Spike in that situation. I was Spike's age when I lost my granddad to cancer, so I kind of remember some of the emotions from that time. So that was playing a part in all of this,
of course.
And so I was quite affected by that piece. It really really hit me. I thought they portrayed it incredibly realistically, and the emotions of it all. Anyway, very powerful, very powerful.
Yeah. It is a hard moment. I have to admit, I got choked up too, even though I didn't share your exact experience. I can completely imagine how that can completely floor you like that. I think it's so down to the three performances, so well measured against. I love how, you know, Ralph Fiennes, whenever he explains what's going on with Isla, like he's very gentle but to the point. And it just Ralph Fiennes is so good at that, where you're just like, he's not doing a lot, but he's doing so much at the same time. And the way that sort of Jodie Comer challenges that performance by like handling the information and trying to look out for Spike and handle his feelings at the same time, but also let him be brave, hold his hand and guide him through this moment. It's a beautiful triad performance, like multi-layer performance moment in the movie. You know, married that and some of the best music in the movie too. I think like the Jon Favreau's stuff that kind of does a little bit of a 180 there, where it kind of goes a little bit more, a lot more you know, memorializing with all the skulls in the background too, and all. You kind of feel the ghosts of all those people in the background too, and it is just a knockout sequence of the film. It really, really is.
It was treated with such like softness for what is like quite a horrific scenario, if you were to think about it too deeply. And so I think there's just so much beauty to that. And I don't know if we've spoken about Alfie Williams enough as Spike, but
I don't think so.
He is fucking incredible. He's so good.
I think it's one of the better child performances of the century so far, to be honest. I think it's so it's so like free of all the usual crap that makes child performances problematic. You know, it's
which
so
we've
natural.
seen in 28 Days Later and 28 Weeks Later. Like the child performances in that, unfortunately, are some of the weaker ones. So they really put a lot of effort into making sure with this one it was different.
You're right. Yes, yeah. The father daughter dynamic. Although Brendan Gleeson's great in the first one.
Brendan Gleeson's great, but yeah.
Yeah, and then 28 weeks later we have Andy, but we have an Imogen Poots is like
Imogen Poots are fine.
Image.
I'm talking the
Yeah.
young. Yeah,
Yes.
doesn't fully work there.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're great here.
But that's Boyle. Boyle's so good at working with kids. Like he's always been like he's great at getting performances from children.
Apart from 28 Days.
Yeah. since then, he's got a lot better. Like, I actually really like Millions. I actually really liked that movie as a kid, and Slumdog Millionaire. Obviously, the kids are amazing in that too. So, like, he's no stranger. And he seems like I'm loving the interviews with Boyle at the minute. Like, he seems like such a warm and like egoless person. Like, he's just like, oh, it was great. We had a great time making the movie. And he's like, he's not smelling his own farts ever. Like,
no.
With a movie like this, like, he's got the right to. But yeah, it's crazy.
He's so thoughtful about everything. He's fantastic. He's fantastic. Like, not all of his films like hit home runs for me or anything like that, but he is he's definitely one of our greats. Like, I'm always excited to put on a Danny Boyle film. There's no doubt. So
yeah. Alfie Williams, fantastic performance.
Yeah, fantastic. That whole sequence amazing, brought me to tears. Wasn't expecting to cry on I think it was a Sunday morning. I was watching 28 years later. So I was like, okay, I'm blown away. I'm blown away.
You should have been in church, but you're at the Bone Church instead.
No, there you go. So I guess maybe that brings us to the ending, which is probably the most controversial part, but I find it difficult to know what to think about it right now. First of all, we have walked from the north down to Cheddar Gorge, right?
Yes, it's actually the only part of the entire film that is filmed in the southwest of England. The rest of it's all up there, and obviously Pinewood's going to be playing a part of that too.
Well, no, they did film in Cheddar Gorge. I saw a whole thing on it.
Oh, so. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, the whole road at the end where where Spike's cooking the ginormous fish that goes to waste.
A fantastic road to drive on, if anybody's ever driven that way. I've only driven on it once, but it was a diversion when trying to go down to Cornwall one time, and the motorway was completely blocked, and I ended up driving down Cheddar Gorge. I've not actually stopped and explored Cheddar, but that road is incredible to drive down. I was literally hovering over the steering wheel the whole way, whoa, this is so cool. It's such a cool location, so cool that they put it in. I do wonder, are we saying it is the south? Like, has he walked that far? I did do a quick Google Maps. It does take about 5 days, so it would make sense because it is 28 days later.
I don't know. I think we're still in north of England, and I think that they're just kind of most people won't get that this is Cheddar Gorge.
I don't know. They're very specific with other areas of the UK, which are landmarks, right?
But yes, that is true. But I'm thinking about the certain character that is revealed at the end of the movie. We didn't talk about the opening. Well, we didn't talk about the opening Teletubbies sequence.
Yes, which I guess we alluded to in our opening. But I mean, the very opening and the very end are the only things that kind of link together those two elements. Like, the very opening is very distinct from the rest of the film. It's very kind of classic Danny Boyle, isn't it? Where there's a family in peril. Or very classic 28 Days Later. Family in peril.
I think all three movies kind of open up in a similar way. Yeah.
You have a bunch of kids, all girls, apart from one boy. I didn't know if that was a thing we should be keeping an eye on. That might be playing a part there. Who are not trapped in a room, but they're shoved into a room whilst watching the Teletubbies, despite knowing that something awful is going on outside. Yes, it's people infected with the rage virus come in, attacking everybody in there, killing everybody in there. The young boy, Jimmy, is able to escape. He runs over to the church where his father is, who is literally a priest, a father. And instead of being like, all right, time to get out of here, he's like, no, this is the rapture. This is all supposed to happen.
Yes.
Absolutely. Good times. Jimmy hides under one of the grates in the church whilst his dad just gets I guess, consensually ripped apart.
It's a pretty gnarly scene.
and we're left with that. That's it. We don't come back to there. We do hit a church later on in the film, but it's not related to that beginning, or it might be the same church, but it's not. It doesn't play a factor into the film too much. And then at the very end of the film, you have a gang of very brightly colored people in tracksuits come out, do ninja flips over rocks to take out some zombies to save Spike, and then our head honcho, played by
Jack O'Connell.
Jack O'Connell.
He's having a year.
He's having a year of genre, isn't he? Like he
Yeah.
first in a vampire film, now in a zombie film. He's wearing a purple tracksuit. He's covered in jewelry and rings with long blonde hair, terrible teeth, and says, "Hi, I'm Jimmy," or something like that, which is very much alluding to the fact that he is basing his whole persona on the disgraced Jimmy Savile. For anybody who doesn't know, children's TV show star, icon of the 90s and maybe early 2000s, massive pedophile, massive pedophile, wasn't really revealed until after his death, despite there being multiple people who knew, rumors, but it was all covered up by the BBC, and massive pedophile. So, but we're in a world where culture stopped in 2002, yes. So our main character here does not know that, and I guess
like he was also really well known for like in that early 2000s he was like the charity guy, like he was the guy that like give millions to like children's hospitals and organizations. So like it's interesting, like somebody at Jimmy's age would have been like maybe you would have idolized someone like this. So
yes,
it depends. Yeah, that's what the movie's playing with.
Yeah, maybe I feel like because he didn't really play a part in my childhood, not that I remember much.
No, I was just sort of like aware
so
of
maybe
him.
Yeah, so I feel like this is a character that's maybe has a stack of old kind of TV shows recordings from what would have been like a bygone era at this point, and that's what he's basing his whole kind of persona, his whole livelihood on, is kind of very old British kids TV shows. And I'm not gonna lie, the ending is incredibly stupid and ridiculous and a little bit jarring. I don't think I hate it, but I am slightly confused by the whiplash I got in that moment. And I guess it's now up to the next film to make sense of that and make me real. Like maybe I'll come out hating that ending more. Maybe I'll come back loving that ending more. Will allow the next film to kind of make that decision for me, I guess, which is a shame because I obviously want to be able to have thoughts on it now. But I think it's very difficult not to without just being like, well, within the context of not knowing anything else right now, very silly. I don't know if you had a similar feeling.
It's I actually oddly bodily reaction to that sequence. I have nothing negative to kind of feel about that. I was sort of like I was on this wavelength for Boyle was so experimental in this film that I was sort of like not necessarily ready for that, but I was always ready for something. And I do think there is a sort of conventional aspect to how this movie would have ended and bridged the gap between the next movie of just Spike wandering into the distance, and that's fine. But I'm not gonna lie, like I'm curious. I'm really curious. Yeah. Like this has definitely piqued my curiosity in terms of like how they're gonna. I don't mind the tonal change. I think I did actually find it really fun, and it did make me kind of smirk and go like, you know what, you've earned it. I'm very interested to see where that goes. I want to see how Spike interacts with people. We're seeing Spike interact with so many different types of people in this first movie, and now we're getting a completely different bunch of people now who obviously have different values and outlook. And it's cool because I think the marriage between that and the opening sequence of the movie, I'd never expected to go back to that plot line. I thought that was just like a representation of like showing where we are and for the title cards and a nice way to start the story. And then obviously we get a little bit of a teaser 30 minutes in the movie where Spike and his dad come across a body that's hung upside down, and it has, you can't see the J, but it says Jimmy on carved into the guy's stomach. And And I didn't know what to think of that at the time, and I was like, and then when it dawned on
Yeah.
me at the end of the movie, I was like, oh, for God's sake, of course. So that
Yeah,
was
well,
fun.
you say of course, but I don't think any of us saw it coming, right? Like that.
No, I mean,
Which
like,
is it?
of course, that's like what the body meant earlier on.
Yeah.
So obviously it's tied to that in some way. I thought it was fun. I just like it didn't like offend me in any way.
Oh no, I'm not offended. I just like, and it works, I guess, within the themes of British, mythology. Like there is no doubt, Jimmy Savile is now kind of this mythological
like
creature,
like a Jimmy cult.
Yeah, he is. We're not going to forget about him anytime soon, unfortunately, because of just how evil in plain sight he is. It did make me kind of ponder for a minute, because the next film's being directed by Nia DaCosta. There was a minute where I was like, I feel like if the next film is going to be playing on British culture and the kind of bastardization of it within the second film, then is it odd that we have an American director taking over that story? Though I did have a quick look at her Wikipedia, and I saw that she did a degree or a master's in London. So she's not completely alien to British culture, there's no doubt. But it'll be interesting to see, because I imagine that stumped a lot of people outside of England or the UK.
Yeah, she's a very fascinating filmmaker. One who I think is so full of talent, but like, is yet to really kind of imprint herself into the public yet. And I hope that this is the project that she does this in. It seems that Boyle's confident enough that he wants to do a third movie.
They just need the funding for it, which it looks like they're gonna get, because it's doing quite well with the budget it had, and obviously he had the confidence to pass that second film over to Nia DaCosta. So I'm not saying she's not the right person for it. We haven't seen it or anything like that. I'm just saying it's very interesting.
You're right, though. It's so like British and tonally overt that we have these characters that are going to be potentially a big vocal part of our new film.
Yeah. It could be they are very much the first 30 minutes and that's it. We're not. Who knows what's going to happen? I just thought for a minute, I was like, oh, I don't know if I is somebody American going to understand that? But like I said, she's not a stranger to British culture. She clearly has spent some time over here. So it was just something that cropped up. I was like, I like this, the storyline and the ideas behind it just feel so intrinsically British.
Yeah. Have you looked at the cast list for like what his gang are called? Like they're all
Jimmies,
Jimmy.
Right? Yeah, they're all Jimmies, aren't they?
Yeah, so Jack O'Connell is Sir Jimmy Crystal. Then you have the rest of the gang is Jimmy, Jimmy Inc., Jimmy Shite, Jimmy Shite.
Jimmy Inc. is being played by
Aaron
Kellyman, who was in
Star Wars,
Marvel. She was in Falcon and Winter Soldier. I think she was in Willow as well. I think that was one of the later ones she was on. So yeah, I'm interested to see. I'm interested to see where they go, and if the bone temple is the bone structures that we've seen from Dr. Kelso, or if it's a completely different thing again. But yeah, no, I'm intrigued.
I am very much waiting eagerly for part 2, and I think we can very safely say, Alex, that we're both massive fans of 28 Years Later. One of the more subversive, big budget movies we've had in years. More of those, please. And something that like only Danny Boyle and Alex Garland could have conjured up. I mean, if you had any other director in Hollywood, not any other director, but most directors would have done the generic trials and tribulations of navigating the zombie world and the survival aspect of the movie would have been the forefront, less these contemplative things that we got. Which I'm so glad we got.
Yeah, which completely took me by surprise. I didn't know we were,
the trailer leads you to believe that it's going to be like a survival movie.
I had no, lack of confidence that it wasn't going to be I thought it was going to be a good film with the people involved. I thought it's not going to be bad, is it? But I wasn't expecting it to be, so like introspective, I guess, in a way that was interesting. And yeah, like I said, if you were going to do anything in this zombie landscape, it was kind of, do something new and exciting and unique, and yeah, they came back and did it. So fair play. So yeah, we've spoken a lot about 28 years later.
Look, it was always going to be. It was always going to be that way.
Yeah, we were clearly sitting on it, just thinking about it for the last couple of weeks, just ready to, I guess, spew.
Look, and no matter where anybody hasn't seen the film yet, no matter where you're going to fall in this movie, you're going to have a lot to talk about regardless. Yeah. So whether you like the movie or not, I think it's worth the price of admission alone just for the great conversations you're going to have on your way outside the cinema.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, that's 28 years later.
Okay, Alex, super excited now because this is the section of the show where we catch up with our ongoing series, our blind spots on the Sight and Sound greatest films of all time list. And we are ever so slowly, but picking it up, making our way down the list of films that we haven't seen before. We have seen this film, though, and we have for this top 10 now that we're getting into, if we've seen it or not, well, it's the top 10 films of all time, and we have to get into it. We have to dissect it in some way. And
I know.
So starting with number 10, Alex, is one of my favorite films of all time, as you alluded to earlier on the show, and that is 1952's Singin' in the Rain.
Yes, we are in the top 10 now. We are in the top 10. Singin' in the Rain, baby. Tell me about it, Chris. I know you're a fan.
So yeah, I've been really excited to talk about this movie, and even just watching the film again. It's never homework. Let's just say one of the most beloved and enduring films from Hollywood's golden age, and it's a film with a very interesting origin story in the fact that there was nothing conventional about how its writers dreamt it up. So released in 1952, it's often mistaken as a straightforward adaptation of a stage show or a film built around one central idea, but in reality, it was reverse engineered. So producer Arthur Freed wanted to recycle songs from earlier MGM musicals, songs of which that he'd written himself, and hired screenwriters Betty Comden and Adolph Green, with crafting a story that could tie them all together. So, which then led them to the story that we now know today. So set in the later 1920s, when Hollywood was scrambling to make the leap from silent films to talkies, all of this led to the foundation of a film that explores the chaos of the early talkies, a self-aware inside Hollywood comedy that pokes fun at the film industry during a time of transition, but also celebrates it. So it stars Gene Kelly, who co-directed the film with Stanley Donen, Donald O'Connor, and a 19-year-old Debbie Reynolds. It was famously a demanding shoot filled with ego, tears, and hospitalizations. So it's a miracle that something so remarkable and joyous came out of all of that chaos.
Yes, as were many films from this time period, by the sounds of it. We are one bad thing away from terrible tragedy.
It was simpler times.
But yeah, I mean, it doesn't feel like it, does it? When you watch this film, it feels just like an effortless joy and ode to cinema. A lot of fun and just charming and funny, and just pure raw talent on screen. Like you said, I've seen it once. This is actually one of your favorite films of all time. Did you mention it as one of your comfort films in our third or second ever episode of the Film Angle?
I try to think this the other day. I need to go back to the show, but it feels like a no-brainer. I mean, it should be on the list. I feel like I did.
Yeah, I feel like you might have. I feel like that's where you would have spoken about it for sure. And I feel like you have mentioned it, but yeah, that was very early days of the Film Angle where we don't sound nearly as good as we do now, if I do say so myself.
I'm worried to go back to the first 10 episodes, and what if we sound better?
I did. Did I go back to the first? I went back to the first not too long ago, and I was like, yeah, no, we are.
You almost just pressed delete on the
nearly. But everybody has a bad first episode. Okay, all right, and it's not awful, but it's not nearly.
We gotta do some archiving.
I don't know, Chris. I don't mind having it out there. I want people to see the evolution, but
sure.
In the same way that this film wants to see the evolution from
nice
silent
segue.
cinema,
very
from
nice
silent cinema to talkies. But yeah, it is it is somewhat apparent that the music was not specifically written for this film. Like, I would say, like, it does seem like a scramble of different songs that aren't all kind of like thematically interlinked, but there is a charm to that as well. But I think what gets this is like it's just a good fun story that's easy to follow, has a lot of laughs. Like, the humor does hold up mainly because it's silly. Because like not every comedy from this era stands the test of time, and obviously I'm not saying that everything still works, but I think you could watch this with a crowd and still get a lot of laughs. And I think it's that Muppets thing of like silly humor is just always silly, and that's why it's funny. Like, it's playing on words, it's doing stupid things. Maybe some of the pratfalls from Cosmo aren't really that funny today or anything like that, but like all the other stuff is charming. Gene Kelly's just insane. Like, he makes, like, I've never seen tap dancing like it. Like, the dancing in this film is just sublime, and the way that the camera doesn't cut around it, like I feel like a lot of musicals these days, we're going for big sweeping shots, we're moving here, we're moving there. The camera just kind of lingers on them as they tap away, and it looks insane. You're just like, how are they doing this? Like, it is just pure talent, there's no doubt about it. And I think that's one of the reasons this film kind of charmed me. And on a second watch, like, so if I was to go back through my Letterboxd history, I was a 4-star guy for Singing in the Rain. And I was watching this, and I do have a couple of like things with it, but I just couldn't. The two things that made me give it 5 stars was just like, I'm having so much fun, I want to watch this again. Its love of cinema is infectious, I guess. Like, we both love cinema. This film loves cinema. It really is kind of an ode to that. And then I was thinking about its place on the list, 10th greatest film of all time, and I was thinking, I can't argue against it. So I guess it would be wrong to not give it 5 stars. I was like, I can't argue against it. My biggest gripe, and I realize I'm laying all my cards out on the table, like I'm not giving you a chance to speak here, but we can really get into it, I guess, once I've laid all my cards on the table, is the and maybe some people will kick me for this, because I know a lot of people love this sequence, but I
know you're gonna say it,
the Broadway sequence in the
ballet.
The ballet, and I know it's riffing on the Red Shoes, and I know they were inspired by the Red Shoes, or Gene Kelly was definitely inspired by it. And this sequence goes on for a long time, and I do find myself just being like, I'm not as interested in this. Like, this is just like a medley of musical stuff that isn't really working with the story, because it's not really the film they're about to make.
It is funny because they're making in this part of the story, they're trying to make a musical about like a dueling cavalier. So it's like it's set in like a Three Musketeers era, but then we get this like ballet sequence set in like early 20th century Broadway, and then at the end of it, it just like the 10-minute sequence ends, and then he goes to this producer, and he says like, and that's the scene, and he's like, I'm having a hard time picturing it in the story, but let's move on. And then like, so you're just like, okay, it was pure. That's Gene Kelly.
It's indulgence.
It's pure ego and indulgence, but like, it's fucking impressive. I mean,
it's impressive. It's impressive. I'm not taking away from that. I'm just saying, like, because I am invested in the story, and we've said this again, I'm a story guy. It really puts the brakes on the story, and then you come back to it. You're like, oh yeah, this is what I'm invested in. So yeah, the Gotta Dance sequence, not my favorite, and I feel it does drag it down a little bit for me.
It's like
whatever. It's not the bulk of the film.
It's like a dancing nerd's like sort of wet dream, because like you have the woman in the green dress that he dances with, Sid Charisse, is like, in that age, and to this day she's kind of regarded as the greatest dancer of all time. So she was like dancing royalty, and like a lot of people who love dancing are like, they idolize that scene in the movie. So But yeah, I think if you're a musical theater person, you're just there and you like the dancing. It's just like more of that. But you're so right. It's like if from a narrative point of view, it takes 10 points off. But you're taking 10 points off a movie that's already scored 120 out of 100. So that's still 110 out of 100. So you know what I mean? So
I don't like your maths.
That's how I feel about it anyway. But yeah, like it is a movie that loves movies. And we get a lot of movies about Hollywood. And most of them I feel like miss the mark. Like they either lean too hard into the bitterness or down into self-congratulation. But Singin' in the Rain just kind of gets it. It walks this incredible tonal tightrope. It's completely aware of how ridiculous actors and the movie making process can be. It pokes fun, but never in a mean spirited way. There's no cynicism here. It loves the chaos, the phoniness, the glamour, the reinvention, but somehow makes fun of it and celebrates it at the same time. Like I love La La Land, I love like Babylon, Hail Caesar. They do that in a way, but none of them can quite pull off the childish like gleefulness that this movie does.
Well, Babylon is like specifically the adult non-musical version of this film, isn't it? Like it almost like rips the curtains away and says this film was the real events that Singin' in the Rain was inspired by in this kind of weird meta Inception way. Despite the fact that both films are fictional. I love Babylon. I like that it did that. I'm not taken away from it. It's just funny. And I was listening to a podcast where somebody had watched Babylon before Singin' in the Rain. And that was quite an interesting experience where they're like, oh, I've seen this all. What's going on? Like I didn't realize just how much Babylon was ripping off Singin' in the Rain. But in a homage way, I guess.
Yeah, it is. I guess it's just like a darker depiction of it, but it's fascinating. But it's just it's a different director from a different era. But again, that movie features Singing in the Rain, actual like scenes from it. So, especially at the end of the movie and Avatar from James Cameron. But yeah, like I know we can't spend too much time on it because we'll bore each other to tears here. But like the dancing is just something that boggles my mind. Like I've seen a lot of movie musicals, and like it's besides westerns, it's just sort of my genre. So, but this is just on another level, Alex. Like Gene Kelly obviously gets a lot of the spotlight, and rightly so. But he is the best dancer, and it definitely shows during the ensemble dances when they're all three of them are dancing together. You're like, they're all good, but he is like your eyes are on him.
And he choreographed a lot of it as well, didn't he? That was his big thing. And I think that's why he gets co-director credit, because he basically was like, let me do these bits.
Oh, and I think he was doing like 3 movies at that sort of time. Like he was just like, he was inundated with work. But I want to have spotlight on Donald O'Connor. And I know you're right. Some of the pratfalls and kind of pantomime-y humor can sometimes feel of its time. But I think Make Him Laugh, that dance sequence, is just next level. I mean that what he's doing with his body is just darn right abusive. Do you know he was hospitalized after shooting that scene?
I was about to say, like they had to do it so many times that he basically
lost the footage by accident.
Yes,
and he had to do it all over again when he got out of hospital. But it is incredible. I think it's like one of the best movie stunts I've ever seen. It's just like it is crazy. I'm just like, when are you doing the backflips, running up the walls, and running on the car, getting carpet burn? It's just like, wow, you're really just like, it's either you really love what you're doing or you're just so scared of Gene Kelly. It's one or the two.
Or you would die for Gene Kelly, which I think Cosmo definitely would. There's definitely some like underlying romantic tension there, I think, maybe from Cosmo, but maybe I'm just I'm reading into that a little bit much. Their friendship is very strong.
Cosmo, well, they were friends since kids, but yeah, maybe Cosmo's keeping it internal. I sort of see Cosmo as like an asexual SpongeBob adjacent sort of person. Like a guy is just like, you just never think of him as having sex.
I guess the era that we're writing it in, maybe they weren't. You know what I mean? Or maybe they were. Maybe they were, and they're keeping it very under the authority code or whatever it was. back then with American films. So maybe they were doing that, but I don't know. They're very codependent on each other, but maybe I'm just being a little bit silly with that thought as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, Debbie Reynolds is great. Yeah. I like how she's kind of brought into the film. I love that sequence where Gene Kelly like jumps from the tram to the car.
Into the car.
Like, again, it's just like some cool stunts, which in a film that's like so big, those little moments, you're like, no, that's really cool as well, and incredibly dangerous. So all that kind of stuff is great.
And she's got bite, like she talks back. She holds her ground, and she's funny as well. Like she's the youngest main cast member by far, and in a way, she sort of just embodies what the film is saying about change and transition. Like she represents a new kind of Hollywood that's fresher, more adaptable, more real, and her arc mirrors the movie's journey in a way, like from silent, artifice to something more expressive. So,
where they needed theater actors, they needed people who could act, sing, and dance, because we weren't just kind of a physical medium anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's optimistic too. It's like, as opposed to my favorite character in the movie, Lena Lamont, played by Jean Hagen. Oh, she is like every time I watch this movie, man, she absolutely blows me away, has me in hysterics. I think she was the only one Oscar. Oh my god, man, she milks it for what it's worth in the best way possible. That voice that just sounds like a kazoo. So
good. And far from her actual voice.
Yeah, it's like she actually there's a sequence where Debbie Reynolds has to dub over Lena.
Yes.
Where she our love will burn until the star. It's something like art till the stars turn cold, but that was actually Jane Hagen's voice. Yeah.
Yes, it's the first time we see footage from the film. Oh no, the second time where it's dubbed, and it, for the audience it makes more sense. And the idea is that Debbie Reynolds is dubbing it, but actually it's Jean Hagen dubbing herself.
Yes, because she had more of a prop. Stanley Donen said that she enunciated better, so it just sounded a bit, well, fair enough. I bought it in the moment.
And she's the one she's really going out to kind of create this character.
But it's this nasal shriek, and the joke never gets old.
No.
She finds new ways to surprise you in every scene, and a lot of the time, the comedy is down to clever writing. But like Lena is just one of those characters where the performance is the punchline. But in a sad way, is an exaggerated version of the truth of silent cinema, where it was a real thing that happened in Hollywood, where silent stars couldn't make the transition and were left behind. But it was a smart idea to make the villain the not so nice person, the bearer of this brunt, and it's great. It's amazing. Like she's part of why I love this movie so much.
Yeah. She's fantastic. It's a great film. It's a great film. What's your favorite musical number from it?
You know what? Like I think "Singing in the Rain" is just like that sequence is so iconic. But I actually really love I love the love sequence between Kathy and Gene Kelly when they're just starting to fall in love at the studio backlot, and is the "You Were Meant for Me" sequence, and where he woos her by orchestrating a musical moment with her by manipulating the soundstage, like turning on the wind machines, the fake fog, the lighting, and it's the artifice is all right in front of us, and we know it's there, but it's still beautiful. And the reason we love movies so much, and like she gets wrapped up in it too, even though she's resistant. And for me, it's kind of like, it just kind of like perfectly captures what the movie is about. So I like that sequence.
Yeah, I think for me, I love the Moses Supposes.
That's a lot of fun.
Sequence. I really like that sequence. I think the dancing is the best there, and it's silly. And I like the way Cosmo comes in, and you kind of you see that friendship and the playfulness there, and you can see why they have been a rock to each other and a supportive arm for each other throughout their careers.
That's awesome.
And it's just a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. You can see why they are going to make the transition to become stars, or at least at least Gene Kelly is, whilst Cosmo takes the back seat but is behind the scenes. great at his craft. So yeah, that's probably
Yeah,
my favorite musical number. Though I mean, I guess the famous musical in the rain sequence, musical in the rain, singing in the rain sequence
yeah.
is fantastic. There's no doubt about it. Where Gene Kelly was just getting, covered in milk.
Yeah, it was like, or yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, because there was always rumors that they mixed water with milk to make it look, because it was hard to make it look like real rain on that film. So
Yeah,
like, yeah, so they had to
yeah,
like
yeah.
thin it up.
I was a runner on a commercial once, and there's a rain sequence, and speaking to the guys there, they were saying it has to be like insanely heavy rain to actually just look like normal rain on
Because they're
camera.
just like, yeah,
It
okay, yeah,
just the camera just doesn't pick up like a light drizzle, like it has to
yeah.
be chucking it down. So yeah, I imagine in this time, yeah, with all the color stuff that you have to go through, and you're filming on film. So yeah, I think it was like a mix of milk and water. So you wouldn't want to be in Gene Kelly's room the night after they filmed that
Well,
sequence,
yeah,
because
he
he
got
just
he,
went
he
out
got
smelted.
pneumonia, didn't he? Yeah.
Yes, he did. Yeah, yeah, and stank of stale milk probably,
Yeah,
which is
and
not nice.
he was wearing a woolen suit as well, so like the suit shrunk on him as they were filming, and yeah, sounds like sounds like a nightmare. But yeah, I mean,
Oh,
like,
old Hollywood, how we
oh,
love you.
Hollywood. But then you love it. I mean, like, I love the good morning sequence when you're just like, you look out the window and it's just like this fake sky and like this rain coming down, and there's not an ounce of it that looks real, but it's just so. I love a Hollywood soundstage when they're done, when they look so
Mm.
good like this. It's type of artifice. It just makes me feel so cozy.
It
And yeah,
doesn't take
like,
you out of it, does it? Like
no,
it doesn't feel like theater, but you also know that it's like this heightened reality of film. You're just in it. It's a dream, isn't it? It's like it's like the nicest dream.
it's idealistic, and sometimes that's not a bad thing. And
No.
so will this, Alex, be one, if you're ever having a sicky day off work, you're just not feeling good, would you ever feel like, you know what, I'm gonna stick on Singing in the Rain, because that's what this movie
Yeah,
is to me.
screw it. I had a lot of fun. I chucked it up on the projector.
Hey,
I
hey.
got cozy in bed, cup of tea, and yeah, I was charmed. And yeah, honestly, man, it is a fantastic film. I can't take away from that. And on a second watch, I'm in love with it even more. So yeah, you'll be
Oh man.
happy to know. See, I'm not completely cold to musicals. Okay, this is a fantastic film.
Oh,
This is
awesome.
musicals done right.
There you go, folks. You have it. If it impressed Alex and you haven't seen Singing in the Rain, well, it'll probably impress you too. So
Yeah. Well,
sure to catch it.
we always ask, but I feel like the answer's already in the air. But does it deserve its place on the list, Chris?
Oh, for sure, for sure. I'm
Yeah.
biased, but hey, you got to be
Would you?
sometimes.
So I think it deserves its place. Would you have it higher than 10?
Uh, we I'll reserve that until we watch the rest of
Yeah.
the list.
I just
Are
mean
we?
like in general. I don't know where.
Oh, dude,
I
it's
don't
a
know if you
top.
have a top 10
Look,
films of all
this
time list, but
this is certainly in my top 10. If
yeah.
not, it could be like number 5 potentially. I think this is number 5 because I've got my Letterboxd top 4, and sometimes I put Singing in the Rain in there and take it out, and it just depends how I'm feeling. So it's up there, man. It is up there.
It's up there. Nice. Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there you go, guys. If you haven't seen Singing in the Rain, we actually, we couldn't recommend it highly enough. If you're into film, then I think it's a definite. You have to watch it. You have to watch Singing in the Rain. It's fantastic. Okay, so next week, if we say this out loud, Chris,
Yeah,
if we
I gotta
say
do it.
this out loud audibly, it commits you to having to do this. So
Ba ba da da ba da ba da da.
yes, the new Superman film is not far off. It's not out next week, but we thought in order to kind of get up to speed in the Superman world, in the Superman mythology, we would go back to the. I keep wanting to say Donna, the Donna films, but they're not really. Only one
It's
of
a
them is.
1.5 almost.
Yeah,
Yeah.
1.5. So we'll say the Christopher Reeves Superman films. There's 4 of them. Yeah, and I have started this list. I'm 3 in, so I've only got 1 to go. I thought I had seen 1 before. Turns out when I was watching it, very similar to 28 Days Later, I was like, I've not seen this fully all the way through before. So
Sure.
in a way, all 4 of these films are completely new to me. So that's been really fun to go back and watch. And then the idea is we're going to rank them. That's going to be, we're ranking the original Superman films next week in anticipation for the new Superman film from James Gunn, putting himself very front and center in the marketing.
Yeah, I'm very excited about that project. I'm also I'm actually just as excited to watch the Reeves films because it's just been like a blind spot that I feel like I've always should have filled in. I think you feel similarly. I think they're movies that we've peripherally always seen on the TV when we were kids and passing, our dads or like our grandparents are watching it or something like that. But we just never watched the whole thing. So coming to it as an adult, as a fan of Christopher Reeve and Gene Hackman and all those guys, I'm really excited to talk about those movies.
Yeah, and a very kind of modern view on what Superman is, because we haven't skipped the DC films of recent times. We've been actively watching them. So yeah, we have a very modern take on Superman. I'm not as well versed in the DC comics as I am Marvel. But I have read a few Superman comics. I am a fan. But yeah, the original ones are very different. So we'll get into that next week.
Yeah, 1930s the comics started. Yeah.
Yeah. So now we're audibly committed because Chris is a little bit behind on the films. He's got a very heavy Superman week ahead of him to catch up.
That's it. I got my red pants on. I'm ready to go.
Yeah, you are gonna know everything there is to know about Superman by the end of this week. You are. You're gonna be sick of him.
Oh my god. All right. Okay. Baptism by fire.
So I hope you're looking forward to that. But so that should make for a fun episode. I'm looking forward to doing that one. We do rank lists every now and then, and everybody seems to like them. So we thought this would be another fun one. So come back next week to hear our thoughts on the original Superman films. That has been the episode for this week. If you've enjoyed it, make sure to leave us a 5-star rating or review. We do really appreciate it. And if you'd like to keep up to date with us, make sure to follow us on Instagram and TikTok at The Film Angle.
We also have a Film Angle playlist. If you want to listen to what we listen to, you can find that in the show notes. I think our taste in music's pretty good. Be sure to catch us next week for more cinematic discussions. But for now, goodbye.
See ya.